Welcome back to another cracking installment of the Matt Brown Show. Today I have with me none other than Farzam Ehsani, Mr. Valor, which we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely.
But welcome back to the show, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Always great to have you here.
Thank you.
I must say you're one of the probably more interesting individuals for me to talk to, because your views are just so world encompassing. Which I think is really interesting. And to that point, let's start the show, and on today's show anyway, with quote of the day. So take us through this bad boy.
So the earth is about one country and mankind its citizens. It's one of my favorite quotes.
Do you see what I'm saying? Worldview.
Absolutely.
Worldview. The earth is but one country and mankind is its citizens.
And I think that kind of, for me, it frames everything I do in life. It frames valor, which we'll talk about in a moment, which is my new startup. And really it frames a new paradigm that the world is moving towards. This idea of us kind of living in nation states and kind of creating false divisions amongst humanity is a real primitive concept. So it's time for us to move beyond the nation state. It's time for us to embrace our collective oneness as a human race. And I think not until we do that will we actually see progress in the world, progress in attacking some of our problems, solving some of our issues. Right now there's too much divisiveness. So unity is the watchword, my friend.
Exactly. The world's full of problems, hey?
It is.
It is. It's also, I guess you got two types of people in that scenario. When they look at the world, they go, reality sucks. And then they need to choose, well, am I prepared to just not do anything about it and deal with, in other words, I'm going to be on effect the rest of my life, or I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and I'm going to choose to change things insofar as the best way that I can, using the latest technology that I can. And that's kind of what you've done with Valor. So what's the headline story with Valor? Let's get that on the table.
Sure. So Valor is a digital asset trading platform. Where people can buy, sell, store, transfer cryptocurrencies at the moment. There's an underlying view that cryptocurrencies, despite what people think right now in the current market state, will provide a real kind of stepping stone to the world of finance in the future. So we're taking a view on that shift in finance to say that the world is going to become one. And for the world to become one, we need a financial system that's not just based on currencies that are limited to particular pieces of land that we call countries. And so at Valor right now, we're providing the ability for people to buy and sell cryptocurrencies. And really, that's where we are right now. So if you think about what money is, all right, the typical textbook definition, which is it's a store of value, right? A means of exchange and a unit of account. So this bat right here, if I ask you what this is worth, relax. If I ask you what this is worth, or I ask most people in South Africa what this is worth, they'll probably give me a rand value, right? If I ask people in the US, it will be a dollar value. In Japan, a yen value. Now, that's just a unit of account. Now, nobody tells you right now this is worth X amount of Bitcoin. It's too early, right? For something to be a unit of account, there needs to be kind of a social acceptance of something as a unit of account. So it's not a unit of account. And it's also not really a means of value right now. Some people are using it to buy property and computers and air tickets and stuff like that. You can use cryptocurrencies for that, but it's still at the fringe. So we're really right now testing as humanity whether cryptocurrencies are a store of value. Because if they're not a store of value, they're not going to be used as a means of exchange. Why would anybody accept them? And they're not going to be used as a unit of account. So our kind of where we are right now is providing that service for people to buy and sell, to discover the price of different crypto assets. And there are four things I'd like to say about Valor specifically, which is the first is we're offering the largest selection of cryptocurrencies in South Africa, over 50 cryptocurrencies, and we're going to be going up much higher than that. And that's by virtue of our partnership with one of the largest international cryptocurrency exchanges in the world, Bittrex. So we're really proud about that partnership to bring the liquidity, globally competitive prices into South Africa, and just the choice for all South Africans. That's the first thing. The second thing is our fee structure. So for the first time in South Africa, in Africa, and most of the world, for particular participants on our exchange, we have negative fees. All right, that means we pay our customers fees when they come to our platform. And basically what that means is for an exchange to do well, you need to have liquidity. And what liquidity means is you need to have, let's say if you go to a market for masks, as an example, Rosebank Market down the road. If there are no masks at the mask market, you're never going to go back to that market to buy masks because there is no liquidity of masks. There's no masks on offer. So the same thing with an exchange. When you have a cryptocurrency exchange, if people come and they can't buy cryptocurrencies, then there isn't enough liquidity and people will go away. So,
or specific coins.
For specific coins.
Yeah, or tokens, whatever.
And specifically for us, it's when people are trading between Bitcoin and Rand and Ether and Rand, we will be paying the market makers 0.1% of their trading value.
Awesome, yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And then the third thing is our referral program, which we think is pretty funky and great. We basically, we have 4 different levels, level 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. And effectively at the highest level, first of all, whenever you refer somebody, you get 15% off your own trading fees. If you refer more than one person, you get 15% off your trading fees, plus 10% of the trading fees of whoever you refer as well. And that's up to a cap of 1,500 Rand per referral. So our thinking is, let's be generous. If we do well, then our customers will do well. And then the last thing is we're using AI and machine learning to really expedite the regulatory process. So we want to be a compliant exchange, a regulatory kind of... we think for this thing to become big, we can't be at the fringe and trying to kind of be disrespectful to the laws of countries and the world, etc. So we're very much abiding by the regulations and anticipating what the regulations would be to abide by them. One of the biggest things is to know your customers, KYC. And the way we do that is you can come onto our platform within 5 minutes, given our algorithms and the technology that we're using. All you need is literally your ID. You'll be taking a picture of it. You'll do a liveness test, which is either a little video when you have to move your head, say some numbers, or a picture, so that we know you are the person in the ID. And within 5 minutes, you're verified. And that's kind of, to my knowledge, the quickest in the market. So it's very exciting.
Great promotional work there, Farzam.
Oh, I'm trying.
Well done. But I mean, look, it does make sense because I had Nick on the show who does KYC using AI, which you guys should just go grab a coffee and have a chat because he's got a bunch of knowledge in that space. Yeah. Also scaling up and all that kind of stuff. So there might be a good JB there. But it's interesting because, it is all investment right now, in the blockchain crypto space. There's definitely, I would say, a huge effort towards moving the utility needle when it comes to blockchain and stuff like that. And then post that, I mean, who knows, entirely decentralized financial systems and an ecosystem that has no wastage and that's essentially free. I mean, that's kind of where things, or that's the promise, really. Yeah.
And I would probably say it's speculation more than investment right now.
That's actually better said, yeah. Yeah, it is. It is speculation.
And I think there's been a lot of promise in the name of cryptocurrencies. So a lot of people, unfortunately, have been burned badly, especially over the last year when they bought at the top. We're about 80% down.
I feel really sorry for them. Dude, this time a year ago, it'll be basically January in January, it would have been a year ago since we launched Crypto Trader, or where we did Crypto Trader in Joburg and Cape Town. Bitcoin price was soaring.
Yeah, it was about $20,000 at the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we met, and I was doing all these live shows and stuff like that. And then, but it was that particular show where I made a bucket load of cash because I could not stop selling tickets. There was just,
the crypto stuff,
it was like rats and cocaine, It was like, we need to know how this is the next gold rush. It was absolute speculation. I mean, I know people who took out second mortgages, credit cards, loans, and all just to, not to miss out sort of thing. Yeah. And the whole reason why, I did any of those events, because, the Matt Brown show isn't a blockchain crypto show, although it's an educational platform that addresses communities of interest. Yeah. And so there's also entrepreneurial opportunities. I mean, when all is said and done, blockchain, the technology, not necessarily the coins, but the technology itself is the next wave. It's like, it promises to be bigger than the internet itself.
Yeah.
if we work with it and adopt it and design it in such a way that it is adoptable and whatever, So, I mean,
I'll share some thoughts.
Go please.
So I think blockchain within certain realms. So I think there's been a lot of hype with blockchain as well. A lot of corporates, people around the world are like talking about how magical blockchain is and how it's going to transform everything. The fact of the matter is, aside from cryptocurrencies, there really isn't any major blockchain platform in production right now that's providing value in a big way or reducing costs for ecosystems. Full stop. Right?
Why though?
So to me, it's quite simple. So blockchains are great for digital assets, natively digital assets. What does that mean? A cryptocurrency cannot exist anywhere but on a blockchain, right? So you have corporates, for example, or big shipping companies and people kind of promising that blockchain is going to revolutionize kind of the transportation of food from one corner of the world to the other corner of the world. It sounds great, and it's very impressive headlines. But practically, how does that work? You've got a banana, from some, South American or, Central American country that needs to be shipped to Europe. Now, people are saying, yeah, that banana is going to be on the blockchain. Well, how does the banana get on the blockchain? It's not the banana physically that's on the blockchain. It's in some representation that's on the blockchain. So how do you get a representation? Well, maybe you need somebody to insert some data on the blockchain saying that the banana is on the blockchain. But if that's the case, you need to just trust that guy or that woman that's putting that data there. And therefore, all this promise of trustlessness is out the window because there's one point of failure there. If that guy inputs the wrong information, then the blockchain is worthless. So people say, no, it's not a person. It's a chip. Okay, cool. Are you going to put the chip in the banana? Right? What are people going to think about that when they eat the banana? Is it on the banana? Is it going to fall off the banana? If it does fall off the banana, let's say all of that stuff actually works. Now you have to trust the chip maker. Does the chip actually work well, etc.? So blockchain is great for a decentralized, trustless system where you don't have intermediaries that you need to place a lot of emphasis on and trust them. Anything in the physical world, you will never get rid of the reconciliation between the physical and the digital world. How will you ever know for sure that the digital representation of that banana on the blockchain is actually where the banana is in reality, right? So my view is all of that kind of promise of what blockchain is going to do to every single industry in the world is way bigger hype than what we saw in cryptocurrencies this past year.
Really, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. So property on the blockchain is a no-go.
I don't see the value right
Scott
now.
Carter's building a big fucking business based on that.
There are a lot of people, right? So and a lot of I'm building a business right now based on cryptocurrencies. People think that's about to die.
Yeah,
it's great. We'll see what the market says.
Let's talk about properties because this guy is, I believe his name's Scott Carter. I think like there's some guy on LinkedIn pinged me up the other day. So I must get Scott on your show and whatever and so forth. And basically what he's doing is saying, well, property is inaccessible to a very large proportion of consumers, and through them in their blockchain solution, whatever, you'll be able to then own a portion of property in London and wherever the indices might suggest. So I guess we get into the technicalities of it, but it's not impossible.
So let me ask you this: what would blockchain do for property that a central database can't? Right?
Well, I have a better question for you then.
Please,
are you ready? Here we go. I think there's more hype about decentralization itself.
I agree with you.
Actually, that's the thing. It's like saying, well, blockchain, it's all about decentralization and everything will be decentralized in the future, when there's no absolutes. So, for instance, if you take property, there may be as an industry, right, or as an investment opportunity, whatever. There will be decentralized applications essentially, or opportunities that live in a decentralized space for property, but it may just be necessary for there to be a centralized institution that holds property registrars. Yeah. But the actual consumer facing, investment application itself, the decentralized app, lives in the blockchain, but it's feeding back from a centralized registry of properties. So now suddenly it's actually, well, it wasn't that property would live only on the blockchain. It's just that there are always nuances with this stuff. It's like, it's like, when you look at different ideologies about financial systems itself, capitalism, Marxism, socialism, etc. There's aspects of socialism in capitalistic societies.
Absolutely.
Fuck's sakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't just have, in other words, if it was all socialism, that's dangerous and that will fail.
Sure.
You see, so it's almost like saying, well, what is the right solution for this need state? But who knows, I guess.
There's a hell of a lot of stuff that you just put in there.
Yeah, but come, let's talk about it. That's why you're here, buddy.
Okay. So let's start with the property, and then we'll go more broad to kind of capitalism and stuff like that.
Yes, I'm excited.
So I totally agree with you, first of all. Well, that's decentralization, then property, then the rest. So decentralization is overhyped. All right. So the reason we're building Valor is it is a centralized institution. You need to trust us to custody your assets, to make sure we do a good job if you have assets on our platform, just like you do with every other exchange platform out there, except for the decentralized exchanges, which are really peripheral right now. They're difficult to use. They're a clumsy experience, etc. And also decentralization in the context of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies really means that everybody holds their own assets, right? So, and in the cryptocurrency world, the blockchain world, that means everybody holds their own private key, which is a string of letters and numbers that entitles you to the assets on a particular blockchain. Now, we came from a decentralized society millennia ago as humans. We had our own gold coins, right? People would carry them around themselves, put them under their bed, whatever it may be. People realized that there was some utility to having a centralized institution that would actually have more security than you as an individual could have. So they said, okay, I've got some gold coins. Rather than me putting it in my house where someone can come and knock me on the head and take it, let me go and actually deposit it at this goldsmith or a centralized institution. Now, so we've gone there, and now the problem is that many people are starting to distrust and mistrust, or they don't trust these centralized institutions, whether they're corporations, whether they're governments, whether they're religious institutions. We're having a real crisis of trust in our world. So some people are saying, okay, the solution is to get rid of trust. But I'm like, are we really going to go back in thousands of years in humanity's evolution of governance, etc., to say each person is a law unto themselves? We've been there. It was pretty ugly.
It's a barter system, isn't it?
Well, there was a barter system, but beyond that, like way back in the day, before you had like institutionalized societies, people were a law unto themselves. They did whatever they want, and it was the strongest that won.
But that's why they call the crypto scene like the Wild Wild West.
Well, that's true. It's true. And the crypto has got a lot of issues with it right now, which is also why we're trying to come into.
Yeah, I'm not needless to say anything more.
So now let's go to property. Okay. So the thing about blockchains is that, as I said, you have a private key that entitles you to a particular asset. With cryptocurrencies, if you lose that private key, guess what? You've lost access to that cryptocurrency. Just like you got a 100 Rand note or a $100 note in your wallet, you lose the wallet, you've lost the money. It's done. So now I've got a property on a blockchain. It's in my name. I lose the private key. Now what? Does it mean that I've lost the property? I'm not entitled to live there any longer. Nobody can reset my private key, and it's just in limbo. I mean, that's a really silly system. Right?
Absolutely.
So obviously, and now that's just one example. Now let's talk about squatters, right? So a squatter comes onto my land, and then they sit there, and I'm like, hey guys, this is a decentralized society. I've got the private keys to get off my land. Is that really going to get squatters off your land? No, right? So you're going to need to kind of appeal to a trusted authority, which is your executive force in the area that you live, whether it's a police force or whatever it is, to come and enforce the law that is actually your land, right? But if that's the case, that you're relying on trusted parties, why are you trying to get away from a trusted database to put it on a decentralized data? For what? To what end? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yep.
Right?
Well, this is why you need oracles, right? So
yeah, but even with oracles, Like, what is that going to do for you?
But they're playing. But again, it's what we're saying is that an oracle would play the role of that. It's like smart applications, right? So if here's the criteria, but here's a deal between you and me. Here's the criteria. If this, then that. Then execute this contract.
Yep.
But those rules would live like a private key essentially in a oracle with an oracle, which would essentially play the same role as a bank.
It is true.
Where it's verifying I have funds to send you you know what I'm saying?
But Matt, again, all of that stuff, great for digital assets, right?
Yes.
But you don't say like, if I have the private key, then that person moves off my land. It doesn't work like that. Like human beings don't abide by smart contracts on a blockchain, right? So, like a really silly way to put it is like a blockchain isn't going to stop someone from punching you in the face. Okay, does that make sense? Like we're in the physical world. If you put some rules in a blockchain that says Farzam cannot harm Matt, that's not going to stop me from harming you if I was not a decent human
saying
being.
all of this over a bat.
Bad example. But you see what I'm saying. And again, going back to my point is blockchains, I think, are great for native digital assets where computers and code govern the digital world. Computers and code do not govern the physical world. That's not how it works. Right?
Absolutely.
Now. So, and then moving on to capitalism and stuff like that, I think we've got a long way to go in our governance structures of the world. I think capitalism has done well from the perspective of creating a lot of wealth for humanity, but it's done a disastrous job at distributing that wealth amongst humanity. And so we've got the extremes of wealth and poverty that are really insane. And I think, when we look back in time, like 1,000 years right now, and we look back at our ancestors and say, shucks, these guys used to burn witches at the stake, or they used to bury female daughters alive. And we look back at that, we think that's absolutely so primitive. And I think if we go forward 1,000 years and we look back to us today, I think we'll probably say, shucks, Farzam and Matt were on this Matt Brown show, in a really comfortable, safe place. On the way there, they came in their comfortable cars from their comfortable homes, but they probably passed 10, 15, 20 people starving without enough sustenance to keep them alive. That is primitive. And I think that's the primitive world we're living in right now. So I think we've got a long way to go to bring about justice. I don't think it's going to come from capitalism. I think capitalism has some benefits. Absolutely, the market has some benefits. But unbridled capitalism, I think we've realized as a world, is not serving us. So we need to and I'm not saying that we need to go back to communism or socialism. That's kind of the false.
Well, we know that those don't work.
Exactly. So it's not saying, okay, we've got a choice of capitalism, communism, socialism, etc., and that's it. We need to find new systems of governance. And
do you believe in the concept of the free market? Because when I look at the world of crypto, and all the instruments, the digital assets, all the cryptocurrencies and stuff like that, it feels to me like the beginning of a truly free market, because it's like there's no regulation or very little.
Right.
There's the Feds try to, insofar as they can, regulate ICOs, thank God. But more broadly, it's like, well, right now, this team can create its own cryptocurrency, right? And I can list that on your exchange because you want cryptos. And as a result of that, I can start to make money, and all of that with almost no regulation outside of KYC. Yeah. That for me feels like a free market. Do you agree with the concept of a free? Is your hope for crypto and more broadly blockchain to kind of manifest and evolve into a truly free market that enables the free exchange of peer-to-peer digital assets and value?
So it's a great question. So I think free markets are an integral part of a future system, but it's how the participants of that free market interact with one another. And what I mean by that is right now, and again, in economics, you have this thing called externalities. Okay. Externalities are like, let's say you've got a factory and it's producing, t-shirts, and it's on a river. And through that production process, it's polluting a lot of that river, and it's killing people downstream, let's say, or fish in the river or whatever it may be. Now, those costs are not taken into account in the cost of the t-shirt. right? They're kind of born by external people than the t-shirt makers and the t-shirt buyers. Now, I think for a truly free market system to work, we need, as a society, to figure out how do we take into consideration all the benefits and costs associated with a particular product or service, so that the free market can actually find what the true value, quantity, price is of that particular product or service. So I think that right now we're living in a very individualistic society. And this is not something that has always been like this, right? This is something that's come about, consumerism and kind of individualism. Over the last few hundred years, it's been becoming a bit more strong. And I think we're getting to the peak of that, where it's all about me, 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 me. And it's really not about the community at all. And I think we're going to get to a point where we realize, wow, if it's just about me and I'm just putting up more electric fences around myself, more security, etc., so that I'm safe in an unjust world, rather use that effort, those resources, etc., to actually start promoting justice in the world rather than just looking at how to protect yourself. Now, I know this sounds idealistic in many ways, but there are many examples of past societies and communities, etc., where you see that the benefit of the whole benefits the constituent parts more. So the earth is but one country and mankind its citizens. If we put the world first, I think people will be much better off overall than if we put individuals first and then see what the world is like. And so if you look at nations, for example, the US right now talking about, America first, China, etc., that type of thinking is stunting the progress of the world. Now, you could say, hey, Farzam, come on, man, that's so like wishful thinking, the America and the Chinese are going to be like that. No, actually, America, China, etc., these concepts of the nation state didn't exist 500 years ago. So we moved from kind of families to tribes to nation states, to city states to nation states. The next part of the evolution of humanity is to a world global order. Now, that's going to freak out a lot of people in the cryptocurrency world because they're like, no, we don't want...
What does that mean, a world global order, in terms of humanity's evolution? What does that look like?
Sure. So let me, a lot of my views, and I'll say I'm always very public about that, are based on the Baha'i faith and the Baha'i vision of what the world is going towards. Now, a lot of what the Baha'i writings talk about is, if you look at that evolution of governance, where we started at families back in the day, right? And as I said, there was a law. People, it was a little bit, the world was where people had the law unto themselves, right? You move from these families. These families used to feud with one another. Then the family said, you know what? Let's put aside our differences and let's form a tribe. Okay, the tribes had their customs, their governance structures, etc., their councils, whatever you want to call it. Tribes used to feud, right? Those tribes then set aside their differences, created the city-state. City-states used to feud. And then they set aside their differences and created the nation state, right? So right now we look at nations, we don't look at tribes as a society, right? So I think the next logical kind of step is where nation states decide, well, actually, this is not serving any great purpose to say, because of the piece of soil or the dirt that I was born on gives me a particular nationality that entitles me to particular rights, versus someone that's born 100 meters on the other side of the border where they're entitled to completely different rights. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think what we'll see is the world will move towards a system where we have a worldwide legislature, a worldwide judiciary, a worldwide executive force. The question is how we're going to get there. To me, there's no doubt that we're going to go there. Is it going to be through peaceful means? Are global leaders going to say, hey, okay, geez, I submit my sovereignty to this global order? I don't think so, if you look around the world and look at the type of leaders we have. Or are we going to have some serious crisis in the world where we're going to be forced to recognize the oneness of humanity and move towards that vision that I've just talked about? So, as human beings, we're rather fickle, and we kind of have very, very short-term memories. And we kind of look at the world right now, or what it's been like in our own lifetime, and we think that's how it's always been, and that's how it's always going to be, right? We know in this country, in South Africa, it's not been like that at all through apartheid and things like that. And we know in the world, it hasn't been like that. Like there was a time where you had to carry around your own weapon. Most of the people in the world right now don't carry on their own weapon because we have governance structures, we have executive forces, etc. So my main point is nation states have served their role. We're moving beyond that. Technology is moving beyond that. Communication is moving beyond that. People's vision and yearning is moving beyond that. Our current governance structures and societal paradigms are old. They need to be updated. The question is that going to be peaceful or not so peaceful?
I would probably say not so peaceful.
I would probably tend to agree with you.
Any change, actually, at a society level has been violent.
It's turbulent.
And it's also been against the establishment. So, but what I found really interesting about what you've said is that it's kind of interesting, right? You have to have individual rights. You have to. Otherwise, you don't have a society. But then the paradox is, well, then because you're born in America, now you have the Constitution, so you're able to have free speech. And so, but now you're American, so that automatically means that you're indifferent to everybody else, reinforced by obviously
correct
media and the mess of the system that
absolutely. It's
is, by the way, is a global system.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that's the paradox, right? So the thing that breaks and the thing that for me that will probably drive it more than anything else, because I don't think it's going to be one thing, but it will be the collapse of the financial system. That, in other words, it's collapsed before, in other words, in the context of like the Great Depression of the 1920s, whatever. 2008 was a more recent one. So it always manifests capitalism always manifests some major event that everyone goes, holy shit, this system's broken, right? And I love what you said, because we do have very short memories. You know, my view is the reason why Trump got elected is because the political corruption and the corporate lobbying institutions in America are at such a cancerous state right now. In 2016, do you know how much money they spent? The corporate lobbyists spent.
Tell me.
$32 billion. Do you know what that works out to per congressman? $6 million. So how are you ever going to get the voice of the people and the individual constituents represented fairly and honestly without the influence of corrupt capitalistic organizations where the entire system is designed so that the rich get richer? And that's why they elected Trump, because they saw Trump as not being a politician. They saw him as a businessman. And okay, we all know what a mess he is, right? So, but the point being, it's that I believe that the middle class, the proletariat in the Marxism sort of model, is becoming aware of this.
Sure.
Your working class are massively disadvantaged, and they're also not exact. They're going, hey man, you know, I'm a farmer. This farm makes $320,000 a year. I only make $20,000 profit, but everything's getting more and more expensive. I have a two-system political party sort of system that governs the way that elections happen. I'm either going to vote Democrats or I'm going to vote Republican, because that's just what my family's always done. You know, but there's a growing unrest. I mean, there's that book by that guy, Richard Reich, I think his name is, Saving Capitalism, where he talks about this growing unrest, and he's moved all over America, and people are saying they've fucking had enough, you know.
It's not just America, it's all over the world.
No, yeah, exactly. By the way, because capitalism exists all over the world. There is no better system, you know. But so just to land my final point there, we know hyperinflation is like the US dollar's devalued massively.
Big time.
Other currencies around the world have had to hyperinflate their currencies in order to remain competitive, to trade with the largest economy in the world. That is not sustainable. You know, speaking to you before and Farzam and people who just know this financial space far better than I ever will, is that when that bubble bursts...
You talked to another guy called Farzam.
But when it breaks, that bubble pops. When that one pops, it's going to decimate. It's not going to be... You know, it's about...
I agree.
You know what I mean? It's like the political climate and then the collapse of a financial system based on a catastrophic event that affects all global economies. And when that happens, then things like what you're saying will start to become prevalent. What do you think?
I agree with a lot of what you just said. I I think there's a lot of arrogance from certain countries in the world as well. When they look at, for example, Zimbabwe or Venezuela with the bolivar and the Zimbabwean dollar, and they've been hyperinflated and basically, become worthless. And kind of people look at those countries and say, gosh, those guys, they didn't really know how to manage their economies. There was a lot of corruption. It's true, there was a lot of corruption, and lack of governance, etc. However, we forget again how young our current financial system is right now, right? This idea of fiat currency, which is money that's issued by a central authority that really can be issued ad infinitum, right? It's what happens when you have hyperinflation. And I actually think 2008, we're going to look back and say that was a walk in the park compared to what's coming up front. When we look at the amount of global debt, the turbulence in the financial system globally, socially, politically. So I think there's a lot of challenge there. I think going to your point of like particular leaders being elected, etc. People look at our candidates, this country, the US, everywhere, right? And they say, man, this candidate is horrible. Let's get another candidate in. But what they don't look at is our system. And it's like they've got a recipe for a cake. And they use that recipe, they put it into the oven, the cake comes out tasting horrible. And they say, you know what, let's try that again. All right, let's use the same recipe, put it into the oven, maybe change a couple of things, hopefully it comes out. But the amount of time it is in the oven, the main ingredients are just not there. And what I mean by that is, if you look at our current system right now, I think most people would agree that the people in power today are not really the people that most of society would want to be in power. Okay? And another way of saying that is, with our current system, is the very process in our system right now to get your name onto the ballot, that very process probably disqualifies you from the necessary qualities to lead, because it's such a dirty process, right? So the people that actually make it, they probably had to do stuff to get there that wasn't very, let's just say, laudable, okay? So, and then the other thing is this bi-party system. I mean, actually, I'm going to take a few minutes, if we have some time.
Yeah, go.
To kind of propose a different system. So, again, if our current system is, people say, hey, vote for me. I'm the best. I'm amazing. Everybody else is so horrible. Vote for me. So, okay, so you got really egotistical people. That is your choice, right? Then you got people that have a lot of money, right? That can, to your point, if they all the electoral kind of spending, etc., and campaigning, there's a lot of that, and a lot of the whoever has a lot of the money, oftentimes does well in the elections as well, right? And then you've got a system where we're all publicly talking about it and saying who's crap and who's good, etc. And so invariably in any election, about 50% of your country is upset, right? Invariably, because of a bi-party system, let's just say, right? I'm talking about, this country, the US, etc. Now, let's think about a world now, just and indulge me for a moment, which is nobody says vote for me, right? And we say, actually, if you say vote for me, we know we shouldn't vote for you, because we're not looking for egotistical leaders. We're looking for people that are humble, that are trying to serve society. And very few of them are going to be like, hey, vote for me, I'm the best. And those guys are really horrible. So don't say vote for me. Number one, don't have any campaigning, because nobody's saying vote for me in any case. So that's number two. Number three is let people vote for whomever they want to vote for. There's no ballot of like, these are the three people, these are the two people, right? And let it be a secret ballot vote. And also, there's an element of maturity that's required within the community for me and you not to talk badly about people and to talk, hey, who are you voting for? Let's vote for that guy. Let's not vote for that person. Let's just say, let's talk about what are the qualities we want. We want someone with a well-trained mind. We want someone that's selfless. We want someone that's devoted to the public service, etc., right? And then let every human being look at who they know and who they think best fits that bill and vote in the confines of their own heart for the person that they think will lead well, right? Or for a group of people that they think they lead well. Let this happen at a local level, and you can have kind of like delegates to happen at a national level, and then at an international level, you can have those delegates voting for international people as well. And what you have in such a system when you vote is you have people that are elected that haven't asked to be elected. So there is no constituency any longer. There's no lobbying, because if someone comes to you and now that you've been elected and they say, hey, listen, I'll pay you X because, you know, if you do the X, Y, and Z, you're like, hey, I didn't ask to be in this position. So no, right? Now, this may sound really, really, really kind of wishful thinking. Again, I said earlier that the Baha'i kind of community and the Baha'i vision informs a lot of my thinking. This system has been in play for over 50 years in the Baha'i community worldwide, serving 6 million people around the world at a local, national, international level. I have participated in these elections ever since I was 18, right? And we don't have individuals, we have councils. And at every single election, there is jubilation and everybody is happy because it's been a different process of electing an institution that there's been no campaigning, no dirty politics, etc. So it's going to take a long time to scale this.
Where is this?
Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, South Africa. Every single city you know in the world, every country you know in the world, and at the international level, the governing council, the Baha'i Faith, is currently in Israel. So the reason I say this is because I feel like I've got to the point where it's actually frustrating to engage, where I feel like, in my own opinion, my humble opinion, I may be wrong, right? But I see this beautiful vision for a new system for society. And then I see people kind of quabbling about the current system and different candidates. And so I'm like, that's not going to get us anywhere. And it's not going to get us anywhere to vote for a different political party either. And kind of to this idea of the earth is but one country and mankind is its citizens, we need to get rid of the divisions. Right now, in this country, 2-letter or 3-letter acronyms are divisive. If I come to you and I say DA, or I say I'm EFF, or ANC, without you even knowing me, if you don't belong to that political party, we've just been divided. We haven't said anything else. 3 letters or 2 letters. That's a crappy system, right? So we need to move beyond this system, try to explore different types of systems that will better serve humanity. I think we can all agree that our current systems are failing us in major ways. Now, there are very beautiful things that are happening in the world, right? Technology is booming. The world is a beautiful place in many ways, but there's so much improvement to be made.
Would you agree with the statement that technology is surpassing our humanity?
That's an interesting statement. What do you mean by that? Technology is surpassing our humanity.
Think about it. I mean, yesterday we were talking about like the singularity.
Yeah.
You know, like that's so fucking beyond humanity. It's not even people, we just don't get it. Like no one really can wrap their head around that idea.
So you're talking about AI and kind of...
But just more in general, it's like if you go back to humanity, you're talking about essentially a system that's based on shared values.
Correct.
And a set of philosophies and beliefs, and basically as a community of global citizens using those values, beliefs, and ideology essentially to elect a official anonymously. In other words, it's governed by the self, not from an ego perspective, right? Yeah. With no labels in that process. It's just, this is how we do it.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I think a lot of people would say technology is taking over. I think technology is a tool. And the values of humanity as humans determine how that tool is used, right? So you're going to have a tool that is used for good, and you have a tool that is used for bad. Cryptocurrencies, knives, guns, cars, lorries, whatever, right? This is technology, and how we use them. Like lorries have been in the news for amazing things, like Tesla's electric, lorries that are coming out. They've also been in the news for really bad things by running people over pavements, on pavements. So my view is that we are trying to find solutions in technology for social and political problems. But at the end of the day, humanity is a social species, right? So we interact with one another. Right? I don't think we're moving to a world where we're all going to be in our own little, kind of caves, or and interacting via computers and
simulation.
I just don't see that.
We're in a simulation, guys.
Like I don't see that. So yeah. So
where's your cord?
So I don't think technology is taking over. I think some people want it to take over humanity, but I think technology is a tool, cryptocurrencies and everything else included, and how we use it is going to determine what the outcome for society is based on our values. And, an earlier statement you made is kind of like the financial system is going to collapse maybe, and then, maybe cryptocurrencies is decentralized, maybe take over. Like right now, cryptocurrencies are not in a state to provide a solution for the world's financial system. Simply not, right? You look at the amount of transactions that can go through Bitcoin, for example, very limited, right? So again, I think we all, including myself, need to have a huge dose of humility to say, listen, let's try to do something better. Let's also acknowledge we may not be right. Let's try to figure out a way of serving humanity. And I think that's kind of where I'm coming from, is like, at the end of the day, myself, Valor, my colleagues at Valor, we're trying to serve, right? We're actually not trying to make the biggest buck in the quickest way and then run the other direction. We're trying to have something sustainable that serves, and if it serves, we think that it will be financially sustainable.
Are you secure? Because, exchanges get hacked.
I'm kind of an insecure person.
Are you? How secure are you? You're a startup.
That's a great question. So let me start by saying, a lot of people have said, how do you feel? Like, are you scared about failing, etc.? And I'll share very openly what my biggest fear is, which is not failing. Right? If we do everything we can and we fail, well, we failed, right? It's unfortunate for us. It's unfortunate for investors, but startups do fail. But we'll try everything we can to not fail. If we succeed in a huge way, and then we are compromised and it affects our customer base, that is what I fear more than us failing.
Yep.
And that fear, I hope, is actually at the forefront of every founder and CEO of an exchange or an institution that is a custodian of people's wealth and money, etc. Because if it's not, I would worry. So given that, we mentioned before the show that we've opened registrations at Valor. Actually, we didn't say how to spell Valor. It's VALR.com. I'm sure it will be in the notes. But we've opened registrations for people to come and sign up and to be placed on a waiting list. And then we're going to be opening that over time in 2019 for people to come and start trading. The reason we're doing that is that we want to be meticulous with our security. And the security of the cryptocurrencies, so hot wallets, cold wallets, the security of our code, the security of customer access, things like 2FA, etc. And we've got security experts in our team, dedicated team of security experts. We've hired right now 2 cybersecurity firms to do pen testing, auditing, etc. So we take security very, very seriously. Now, I think it's important for the public to know that any exchange cannot guarantee 100% security. That's just impossible. No exchange in the world can do that. So one needs to be careful with any exchange that you're dealing with, and to make sure that they're actually trying to put in place checks and balances to keep crypto assets safe, etc. So I think we're doing everything within our power and we're spending actually a lot of money. As a startup, we don't have that much money. We're spending a lot of it on security to make sure that it is secure. But people need to realize that there are always risks. So some people say that's the reason to go off exchanges. Don't hold your cryptocurrency on exchanges. So again, there are risks with that as well, because now you're holding your own private key.
You're talking about decentralized exchanges.
Well, not even decentralized. I'm talking about like a Trezor or a Ledger, these hardware wallets,
okay, yeah,
where you can hold your own cryptocurrencies. Now, yes, then you don't have the risk of an exchange, but now you have the risk of losing, your backups, etc. And if you lose that, then you've lost your cryptocurrency as well. So to me, it's a trade-off. Like, what are you comfortable? What type of risk are you willing to take? Do your research about who's behind exchanges, what security practices they have. And the thing that's great about us is, given our partnership with Bittrex, they were started by 3 cybersecurity experts several years ago. They're one of the largest exchanges in the world. They have one of the best security practices in the world. So our partnership allows us to leverage off of that security. And on our website, there's a lot about what our security is. So if people feel that we need to be more secure, I'm not so exactly sure how to do that, because we think we're doing everything we can. Give us the feedback. We want to be as secure as we possibly can.
Yeah. So there's a lot of injustice right now, I suppose, from a consumer perspective, when you're looking at, how speculatively people made choices and then now sitting with an empty bag of coins, or a bag of coins that potentially aren't worth what they were.
Exactly.
So let's do your Injustice League. So the guys will get set up here, but what is the one injustice that you see in the world today?
Yeah, I think it's
a beautiful injustice, Fox. Well done.
I don't think injustice is that beautiful. So
I'll talk about the box, damn it.
I think, like we spoke about earlier, I think one of the biggest injustices in the world today is the extreme inequality between the rich and the poor. Yeah.
Okay, with that in mind, there's your baseball bat. You picked it up consistently throughout the show, so I figured I might as well just let you swing it, because subconsciously you really wanted to.
But I'm a loving guy.
Oh, you're not going to stand up and get going with that thing? Do it properly. Stop messing around.
Here we go. I'm gonna give some love.
You can put the mic down and just have a go at it. I'm gonna stand out the way here. Go ahead. Well done. Round of applause.
Thank you.
Thanks, live studio audience. You've been rather quiet today. I see Kat Lechel is wrapped in your attention. He's been hanging on every word. Do you have any questions for him? Hang on, use your mic.
Yeah. So the one question I might have is based on your faith. What is it all about?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we could have a whole separate episode of that, but in brief, the Baha'i faith is a New World religion. It's about 170 odd years old. And the main purpose of the Baha'i faith is that it talks about the unity of the world. It's time for unity. So Baha'u'llah, who is the author of the Baha'i Revelation, he said, listen, we've had a lot of divisions in the past. And actually divisiveness and division is the cause of a lot of our problems. So he says, recognize your oneness as a human race. Through that recognition, you will be able to solve problems. The world kind of has it the opposite way around. They're like, listen, we've got problems. Let's solve our problems first, and then we can be unified. But Baha'u'llah says, no, it's the opposite, actually. First of all, recognize your oneness. Through that unity, you'll be able to solve the problems of the world. Yeah. That's in a real nutshell.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Are you sure? Are you going to convert? What's it called?
The Baha'i faith. BAHA''I.
Okay. Baha'i faith, eh?
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting stuff.
It is.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
So, tell me something. As a founder in this crypto space, how have you found the process of launching Valor? And when you look, I mean, this wasn't something that you started 3 months ago, right? So it's been
8 months now.
8 months, okay.
Yeah.
So in that 8 months, when you look back at that 8 months, I mean, now you've literally done a beta launch sort of thing.
Yeah.
What jumps for you as kind of key learnings? Like things you would do differently? I mean, so just obviously just to set that up, I mean, you come from Rand Merchant Bank.
Right.
But you're not really a tech dude, is that fair to say?
So I'm an economist actually by training.
Yeah. Which is great. So how does an economist brain deal with the pitfalls and the pain of technology? And when you look at that tension and over the last 18 months, like what are like 2-3 things, key learnings that really jump for you?
So I think the first thing is your team. I think the people behind Valor are second to none. We've got an amazing team. And to your point, I'm not a technology guy from the perspective of I don't code myself, but I have enough understanding of the tech that allows me to kind of provide the vision and kind of the direction of the company. But we have experts in the particular domains, technical experts, security experts, product experts, designers. I'm not a designer, right? So I think one important thing is, as an individual, you've got to kind of put yourself at service of the team, right? To me, that's what a CEO does. So actually, I've been the guy going out and getting lunch for the team, etc. Right? Because there's a lot.
I do that every day, don't I?
Hey, that's good. That's good.
You're making me look bad, dude. Shut up.
So that's one huge learning, is get the right team. Another is you need to have funding, right? So it took us a couple of months to get the funding in the door. And that was a scary time, because we didn't know. We as a team didn't have much funds ourselves. We had a little bit. And we really needed external funding, which we eventually got. So funding is important. And then kind of underwriting both of those things is you need to be able to deal with ambiguity, ups and downs, despair, jubilation. Like it's a tremendous roller coaster as an entrepreneur, kind of trying to get something off the ground, creating something, for the public.
How are those cold sweats working out for you?
Oh, yeah, they're there.
They're pretty good, eh? Yeah, people don't get it, eh?
No,
they really don't. It's hardcore. You guys have done well, though, all things considered.
Yeah, we're trying. We're not there yet. I mean, we've launched, which is great, but we've got a long way to go. We need to stay humble and just do the very, very best we can.
Can you reveal who your backers are?
We can.
Okay. So Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan is one of them.
Cool. Because when you told me this months ago, I was like, fuck, that's really interesting. Obviously Michael's just like, what's that bank? Rain's this data thing. What's the bank Zero? Yeah. Now he's doing this crypto thing. It's really interesting just watching his investment portfolio and where that money goes. But when you sat down with him, like, how did that conversation go? And what were you saying? Like, what did he find interesting about crypto exchanges and that kind of thing?
So obviously Michael used to be the F&B CEO a few years ago. We connected actually post his departure on Twitter. He had read a paper that I had written, and then we kind of started conversing. And so while I was at RMB, we actually had we had a 2-hour conversation in his office down in Stellenbosch, and then we kind of had some correspondence between ourselves. But we were really discussing kind of crypto, what it would do for society or what it was, etc. He's been into crypto for quite some time. And then when I decided to leave RMB to start Valor, I gave him a call and I said, this is what I'm trying to do. I would love to hear your thoughts, any advice you have, etc. And also, would you be interested in backing us? And so he was our very first investor. And he's an absolutely amazing investor. Very, very encouraging, provides connections, ideal. And then our second investor is Bittrex. Bittrex is also a partner as well. They invested a significant amount into the business as well. So between the two of them, there are a couple of people in their own capacity, the team, that's also put in some of their own money.
Okay.
But those are our two major investors at the moment. And,
so you get on a plane, you fly to the States, so you go to Bittrex's offices and you go, hey motherfuckers, we want to open an exchange.
A little bit more courteous than that.
Can we also have your money?
No, so actually it was interesting. One of my colleagues got in touch with Bittrex some time back. He had heard that they were getting into partnerships with other exchanges around the world. And this is kind of what they're doing. They're getting into a lot of different partnerships with, different players globally. And they've done actually quite a lot, which is really tremendously amazing. So he got in touch. The CEO actually responded saying, yes, we're actually doing this. My colleague said, cool, can we talk about this? There was silence. My colleague wrote again. Silence. Colleague wrote again, and then he finally responded and said, okay, let's get you in touch with the people at Bittrex that can kind of continue the conversation. So I kind of took over that conversation from my colleague. He was also there. And we were here in South Africa. They were in the US. Actually, we had lots of calls. We shared, business plans, financial models, etc. with them. It was really important for them to get to know us. They're a very upright exchange and player in this ecosystem from everything that I can see. They've hired people from the Department of Justice, from regulatory bodies in the United States. Their average age of their executive team is actually much higher than the average age of most other exchanges around the world, which is not necessarily a good thing always, but in this case, it shows a little bit more maturity.
What is that
experience.
average age?
I don't know exactly, but we're talking about,
Between 40 and 50?
No.
30 and 40?
I would imagine it's about 30 and 40.
So not 18 to 21.
It's not in the 20s, let's put it that way. Okay, nothing wrong with the 20s, but and actually a lot of the people in this ecosystem are in the 20s, which is great. But the reason I bring that up is because there's a level of maturity about complying with the law of the land. That's where we want to be. That's where they are as well. So they did a lot of kind of background checks on us to make sure that we were kind of within their appetite of complying, etc. And
so they didn't pick up that DUI from last year.
Thankfully, I don't drink. So so then actually they accepted to invest without us ever having actually physically met.
Wow.
So, but I had said that actually let's meet. So I actually flew out to the States and we had a meeting in Chicago, breakfast meeting from 8:30 to 9:30 in Chicago, and kind of just confirmed everything during that meeting. It was really just face to face to get to know one another, and did all the legals, the money that came across, and here we are.
What I love about the crypto world specifically is how accessible everybody is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you want to get in touch with like Craig Wright, questionable whether you want to do that, but if you wanted to, you can. And because it's so interesting because the technology is so basically the whole thing just promises so much and it's so disruptive in many facets. But it's like no matter how rich these people are or how big their personalities might be or the coins that they might own, for instance, or keep forking.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
It's like they're very accessible. It's absolutely. Like I'll go to Lorien and there you go. You know what I mean? It's like it's so interesting because if I went to, like I interviewed Michael at Don and you actually came up. We're talking about you leaving. Yeah, I was like, I knew before you did, Mike. So,
interesting. Yeah, you gotta go check out the episode.
Yeah, exactly. It was hilarious, but but just Michael's probably more accessible than say Mike Brown would be from Nedbank.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I agree with that. Right.
Although, just as you understand, it's just really interesting, and that for me is a very interesting opportunity for entrepreneurs because if you want to learn stuff, if you want to get funded. If you want to do anything, right. There's just immense opportunities in the space. And with blockchain crypto, like for me, as I said, it's like it's the new internet of value. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with that. Matt, I would take it a step further and say like the world is becoming much more accessible, right? It's not just the crypto world. And I think I'll tell you a small little story, which I really like because there was this guy he was Zambian and he didn't like what was going on in Zambia. So he told his buddy, he said, hey, listen, I want to talk to the president. And they're like, are you kidding? He says, no, I want to talk to the president. And so I think one of his friends at the end of the day kind of gave him the telephone number to the State House, right? And so this guy gets the number and he calls. He's like, hi, my name is, let's call him Michael. My name is Michael so-and-so. I'd like to speak to the president. And they said, do you have an appointment, sir? No, but I'd like to speak to the appointment. It's very important. Sir, one moment, please. There's some music playing in the background. He's on hold. Someone else comes onto the phone and says, yes, hello. He says, yes, my name is Michael so-and-so, and I'd like to speak to the president. Sir, do you have an appointment? No, I don't, but this is important. I'd like to speak to the president. Put on hold, music in the background. Someone else picks up the phone and says, hello. He says, listen, my name is Michael so-and-so, and I would like to speak to the president. And the other voice says, it's the president speaking. And he says, and he didn't really know what to say. So the first thing he actually said was, I just wanted to let you know that I didn't vote for you in the last election. So he's like, okay, well, how can I help you? Anyway, what happened here was that they had a conversation. The president said, listen, if you're free, come and meet with me tomorrow at 3 p.m. He says, sure, I'll do that. The Problem was he was in London. So he talked to his boss. He actually got onto a plane, got to Zambia, had the meeting. He became a presidential advisor for the next 3 years.
What?
Right? So the reason I like that is that most people think, oh, that's not possible. Like the world is a world of possibility. Like even if for young guys and girls that are, or ladies and gents that are trying to get jobs, for example, like they often think, let me just put in an application and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, go to the place, ask to speak to the head of HR, show them who you are, have a conversation with them, talk to the CEO even, get an appointment. Things are possible.
So I totally agree with you, but we all fall guilty of that. I'd love to know why you think that is, because I'm in the process of getting this thing. Remember State of X? I'm sure I told you about it.
I don't think so.
So it was a conference where it would connect the world's best of like all the most prominent exponential technologies, AI, blockchain, quantum computing, Internet of Things, etc. And I was going to rally up a bunch of sponsorships and but I needed to have a rock star talent on that show, right, or on that series. And so it was very much an evolution of Secrets of Scale, and State of X was the next thing. And so I was like, shit, well, who can I get on the show? And then to your point, it's like, well, everyone is accessible. So I went and I got a hold of Tim Urban from Wet But Why, and he was on the show.
Awesome.
I got a hold of Ray Kurzweil. I mean, these are like, dude, there was another guy who was
Ray
building.
was on your show as well?
Dude, yeah, he was,
awesome.
This one chap, forget his name now, but he was like building fucking robotic brain interfaces at the University of Berkeley. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and then, I'd reach someone at University of Berkeley, and then he said, look, I'm not available. I'm like, hey, well, is there anyone else you know? And he goes, yeah, sure. There's Anchor Dragon, and what is she doing? Well, no, she's doing this, but it's still like
absolutely
at the most cutting edge of the most cutting edge stuff,
Absolutely.
And so, but if you don't ask, you don't get. It's like, to dumb it down even to something everybody can understand. If you're driving in your car and you're going shopping, right, and it's a busy parking lot, if you don't look for a parking right outside the front door, you'll never find one.
And they're always free.
Yeah, exactly.
I always get the best parking.
So it's like I always just say to my wife, babe, just go to the front and look. And inevitably you'll find one.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but sometimes you'll find one.
That's true.
But no, you must go park downstairs in the basement and spend another, you know what I'm saying? So, but I mean, it's just like you got to continually challenge your assumptions.
Correct.
And that's what I love about what you guys are doing.
We're trying, man. We're definitely trying.
Cool. Well, look, last question for you. Why do you do what you do? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
As I said earlier, I want to serve humanity. Like, I think my days on this earthly plane are limited. And every single day I get closer to the day that I'll no longer be here. And it's kind of strange to me that as we get closer to that day, people are just trying to get more and more wealth just to leave behind. And I really would like to leave the world better off, serve my fellow brothers and sisters, create a little bit more unity and love in the world. There's not enough of that in the cryptocurrency space right now. It's a toxic environment oftentimes, and we think that needs to change. It's a tool again, crypto and cryptocurrencies. We recognize that it's a powerful one, and we're hoping to bring some values to that tool and use it in a way that we hope will serve humanity.
Always great chatting to you, mate.
Thank you very much.
Wishing you all the best, bud.
Appreciate it, man. Thank
Cheers.
you so much.